And we're here for Tarot Delights.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Episode.
Yes. Do you need to come over, or
Oh,
are you
maybe.
okay? I can move this a little bit too here.
The configurations of
Yes.
us trying to figure out how we can sit nicely, but not like
Yeah,
hip check
we
each
need
other.
like another table over there so we can push it back a little further.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but that will come in the fall, maybe.
We're playing by the ear right now. We're just figuring out what works.
Yeah, exactly. And our tablecloth is all rumpled, but we'll work through it, folks.
I was wondering what happened.
Just for you, we'll work through the rumpled tablecloth.
That's how the Fridays are going. Hey,
exactly.
I managed to drink my coffee before spilling it today,
Oh.
which did not happen over the weekend, like last weekend. So we're doing good today.
That's awesome. Well, I had a beautiful, pure white, pristine t-shirt on yesterday.
Uh-oh.
And when you know it, I got a dribble cup for my coffee. And it was like, seriously, of all the days.
It's because you were white.
Yes, that's right. Like, I could have got it today and it would have melded into the black, but
Oh my goodness. That's yeah, it's always when you think it won't happen, it does.
yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I guess I should go have some chocolate-covered ice cream or something, too.
Oh, they have really good, like, sorry, I had Dairy Queen last night, so I was like, they have really good, like, new summer blizzard flavors.
Yeah, I love the peanut butter parfait. That's definitely one of my personal favorites. But we're here to talk about the Chariot.
Yes.
So that's the next card in the major arcana that we are covering, and I will get out the traditional Chariot tarot from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So that's what it looks like. It's often someone in some kind of vehicle. Sometimes they're modernized, and you see them on different vehicles that don't have things that pull them, like horses, or in this case, sphinxes. But normally speaking, when you see...
When she's talking about different modern vehicles.
Exactly.
Just the motorcycles there she's struck.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the motorcycles, yeah, so the motorcycles too, you know, one's silver, one's black, one's silver, one's black.
So it still keeps that symbolism.
Yeah. So there's actually, this one's white and this one's black. So they're usually opposites, like silver and gold, white and black, gray and black in your modern motorcycle one, because the idea is, if not controlled and balanced, the horses, the sphinxes, the motorcycles, whatever it might be, want to go in opposite directions. That, oh my God, my family keeps texting me.
She's the hard person to get hold of.
That want to tear the chariot apart, but it's with the balance of the driver that keeps them together, that keeps them focused. So when this card comes up, it usually means it's a victory card, but it's a victory card, what I call with conditions. And the conditions are, pardon me?
No, I'm just, as you're saying it, I'm like, oh, I remember this.
It's the conditions of staying balanced and focused, because you have to keep your team, horses, sphinxes, whatever it is, focused and balanced. And then too, you know, like there's the stars on the curtain overhead that's in the chariot. So it's sort of like the divinity plus the earthbound, you know, the whatever's pulling you. And then usually, like here, he's got a big star crown. He's got moons for his shields, just to kind of, you know, have him create that balance between earth and heaven, heart and mind, the logical versus the chaotic, and that sort of thing, right? So it's all about that, and about where do you want to go, because the chariot's about to move you. And it's number 7, so 7 is considered a lucky number by a lot. The other thing that 7 is known for in numerology is it's sort of your second time around.
Okay.
Right? So you're learning a lesson and you're gaining victory from this lesson, but you're doing it in a way that you've already done this first rodeo, so you know kind of what to expect, right? You know what the bucking, you know, horse is going to feel like, you
So
know.
you're familiar with the territory.
Yeah, and you're up for the challenges
Okay, yeah.
because of past lessons.
Okay.
You know, maybe you have level 1 of balance now, it doesn't mean you're not going to get knocked off the horse. It just means you're not going in there green, like a green
Which is
horse.
really important, though, because I feel like there's a lot of just bringing it into the emotional realm. If you walk into a situation and you know nothing, your ability to react is compromised because you're just really hesitant. You're like, what if I do something wrong? But if you're familiar with kind of the situation, lay of the land, and you've reacted before, your confidence, A, goes through the roof, and you're going to react differently, and you're going to have a different outlook and be like,
Yeah.
regardless if I make a mistake, this is still familiar, at least a little bit.
Yeah, especially if it's something that you're learning from. You know, like, I mean, there's also the familiarity of the devil that you know, right? And that can be very stunting, you know?
Yeah.
Because people will put themselves in a bad situation simply because they're comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's hard. Well, people are scared of and people in general are scared of what they don't understand.
Yeah.
And that goes for a lot of subjects.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what I like about number 7 is that it is, you know, like you said, you're walking in with some familiarness, some knowledge. And yeah, you're not the expert yet, but, you know, your lessons are always spiral, never linear, very rarely linear. You know,
Which is interesting because that's what they teach us a lot. Like, when you're not in a spiritual frame of mind and knowledgeable of that spiral, they do teach you linear. They're like, the path from A to B is supposed to be, but then we learn that it's not.
right.
But it's not taught that it spirals,
yeah.
which I find very interesting because that makes a lot more sense to me than
Yeah, because I mean, learning, no matter what learning you're doing, is always repetitive.
Yep.
We learn our ABCs in a repetitive way. We learn our multiplication tables repetitively. We learn our emotional lessons repetitively.
Yep. Because
And
if you don't pay attention, you'll repeat them.
Yes, exactly. Or even if you do pay attention, you're going to learn a little bit more. You're not going to learn like here from to there. You're going to learn the first layer, and then you got to go around. You're going to learn the second layer, third layer, fifth, fourth layer, whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's right. That's interesting. A lot of what you're saying, like, it's kind of unlocking. I'm like, oh yeah, that does make sense. And then this can be applied over here. So my brain's kind of like, whoop,
Yeah.
making all those connections.
I mean, as human beings, we want to learn in a linear way because we go, this is the shortest path. I want to get from here to there. But no, you got to go here and around here and, you know, do a little spiral dance here. And then
It's true. Those little spiral dances, don't discount them because they're key.
yeah, they can really add to the journey, which is great.
Oh, we've got someone popped in.
Oh, yay. Hello. Thank you for being here. We've been a little erratic over the summer about when we're on. But come fall, we will be on every Monday night, starting probably around 4:30 or so.
Yep.
And we're going to do tarot delights, and then we'll do other delights. And
I like it.
Do them back to back. So so tune in for either or watch us on our channel, subscribe to our channel, ring the little fairy bell, and you'll get notified when new videos come up. So we're hoping to get them out every Monday night.
That's a fun one.
Yeah, yeah. Except the Thanksgiving in Canada is always a Monday, so we won't be doing one on Thanksgiving.
You know. Or Family Day, which is also a Monday.
Yeah, yeah.
So
but
there's
that's
a little,
not till next year.
Yeah. There's some things that'll probably impede, but that's okay. We can just take that little bit of a break and we'll just hit the next one coming.
Exactly.
I love the Chariot card. I don't know, from the very beginning, I remember taking your tarot course. And I was like, yes, this speaks because we're always chasing balance. And like,
Yeah.
regardless of how much of a workaholic I am, I strive to have a work-life balance and then just go, no, I can't handle being off work and dive right back in. I do love my job, so that's at least good. And, but I remember really struggling with the Chariot card at first because I'm like, oh yeah, it makes sense. And then I'm like, no, it doesn't.
Well, people always get excited because it's movement, right? And the Chariot card is that movement that doesn't really scare you because it looks good, right? Like, I mean, this guy's in the chariot, the Roman kind of chariot, and you only got in there when you had a victory in the Colosseum.
Oh, because they do that victory lap in the Chariot.
Yeah,
That's
exactly, exactly. But then when you hear, oh, I have to be balanced, oh, I have to be focused, it's like, oh, that sounds like some work.
You got to do the work in order to get the balance.
Right, and you know, when I tell people it's a victory card, they're like, oh, yay, I'm going to win something. You know, and who doesn't want to win? Of course you want to win. Now, in my working deck, the Gilded Tarot, I have gold and silver sphinxes, and it's a woman up top there. But she has a lot of the same qualities. She's got the sun up there. And of course, she's veiled in beautiful veils, as one is when you're up there. But she's got a big golden chariot. So who doesn't want to? Although I don't know how sphinxes pull chariots. I always see them as statues. But
Yeah, I find that really interesting. So, like, I have a couple of decks, and the two that kind of resonate. So I have the, I want to call it the Druid's Craft. That's not correct. It's like the Universal Celtic Tarot. But again, I follow a lot of like Druidic things, so I'm like, they all kind of overlap in my brain. So
Right.
he's got 2 horses, and then this one's a female one, and she's got 2 horses.
okay.
But then with the Darkwoods Tarot by Sasha Graham, this one threw me for a loop. So I love a lot of the artwork done by Abigail Larson. She's fantastic. She does a bunch of tarot decks. They're coming out with more. My pocketbook's not going to be happy. But it's an eagle.
Oh.
And that, like, I get it.
Yeah.
Because it's like that victory that, like,
Yeah.
I have the confidence to keep going and take that victory.
Take that flight.
But for me, when you're used to seeing like that chariot and the 2 horses or the 2 things that are pulling you in that one direction, I was like, I can't.
Okay.
So
And it's just an eagle.
it's just an eagle.
Okay.
But it's interesting. So I've learned enough of the tarot that regardless of if I pull that card or not, I know kind of where my brain is and what card I see in my mind. And then I was trying to get the meaning because I need to get better at pulling up meanings and stuff, but I really want to dive into the Wildwood Tarot this year. So this one is the Archer.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it has more. So it's that moving forward. You pull the bow back. So maybe it's that balance of pulling that bow back in order to go forward when that arrow is released.
Yeah, I mean, that's a skill.
Yeah.
Like, it looks easy, but it's not. And yeah, everything has to be, well, you have to be toned properly. And because you can hurt yourself. My aunt used to do archery.
Oh, good for her.
And in the summertime when I went to visit, I'd always ask, can I do the archery thing?
Yeah.
And there were a couple times where I'd snap it and be like, oh my God, my fingers.
Well, yeah, because it's got to have that tension balance,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, the closest thing I've done is a friend of mine's brother used to have, they lived a little outside of the city, so they were able to, like, set up a little area, and he was quite skilled. And then the next closest thing is archery tag. So you learn the skill set to kind of do enough to do a foam arrow. So you're basically getting hit by foam arrows.
I'm like, I hope you're...
No. Yeah, it's tag, but with foam arrows,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
really like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it requires you to kind of really. So like, I really wish I had done like regular access to archery, because then it would improve your aim in the game. Because I'm like, okay, I want to hit this person over here, and the arrow would be like, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And probably with the foam, the lightness probably makes it fly really
Yeah.
easily too.
Oh no, but it's still super fun. But that's kind of where I see the archer with not having memorized the guidebook.
Right, right. But you know, what's great is when you learn tarot, the basic, like you say, you can see where the deviations are.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, even though this is different, and like you said, the eagle kind of threw you, but you can fall back on, I know what the chariot means traditionally.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about learning tarot and its meanings, and then layering that intuition on top, not just doing intuitive readings, as
Yeah, and
great as those are.
No, intuitive readings are interesting, and I like, because it all depends on like what's around it too. So obviously we're pulling the same card, but the chariot's going to have a different meaning depending on the cards surrounding it. So if it's surrounded by cups, it might be movement forward in a relationship. If it's surrounded by swords, it might be movement forward in like school or a job. Those are just really generalizations based on the suit categorizations. But I don't know, I have a really interesting connection to the chariot card, and I think it's because I've been looking for that work-life balance.
Yeah. And like you were saying, you know, it depends on what's around the card, how it's being influenced, or what it is influencing. And you know, like I was saying, like, it's great to know the actual meanings, because then I've said before, I've had intuitive readings that are way off, and it has nothing to do with what the actual card means. But what I like to tell new people that are looking at tarot spreads is, one of the first things is look and see what the biggest thing is there. Like, do you have a lot of major arcana? Do you have a lot of sword cards? Do you have a lot of cup cards? Because that can have an influence. So take a bird's eye view, like your eagle, first, and kind of find the patterns or the repeats that are there, right?
Oh, that's interesting, because I remember reading for a client, I think you were still in that back office, and she wanted a love situation reading, and it was all like no cups in sight.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, I was like, oh, how do I?
Yeah, and that's a case of, I always warn clients, and I've heard you say it too, where it's like tarot has a way of telling you what you need to hear as opposed to what you want to hear.
And that's kind of what I told her. I was like, so you may have wanted a love reading tonight, but the cards have something else to say.
Yeah, right?
And we just went off of that.
Yeah, and maybe there's something she needs to take care of before love can come in or be healed or whatever it might be, right? So.
And I like the fact that tarot uses that springboard of like where you are right now.
Yeah.
And regardless, like that's that snapshot right now. You could go left or you could go right. That's totally up to you.
Yes.
But where you are currently in that moment of getting the tarot reading is what the cards see.
Yeah, I had a reading like that just the other day, where it's like, it was sort of like, do you go one way or the other?
Yeah.
And, I was like, well, I can't make the decision, but the cards are leaning this way, right? And for the person that was getting the reading, it was very clarifying on a lot of things. Oh, that's
good.
So that was good, because I kept asking, like, does that make sense? Does that resonate? So don't be afraid to ask your clients questions too. Like, don't just sit there and go blah, 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 blah. Like, I mean, yes, there's a lot of that happens, but also ask in between, like, is this making sense? Is this connecting? Does this resonate? How do you feel about this, right?
And sometimes when they answer, they see something that you don't see.
Yeah.
And then you can be like asking them a clarifying question on something, say the Chariot means they were going to move forward in whatever space, and they're like, well, actually, I'm looking to move sideways in my job, and then you re-look at the situation and realize there's swords kicking around, and you're like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Those are just like off the cuff examples, but yeah, no, I have a really, like, I love this card, and I get really grumpy when the illustration changes, because then I'm like, it's not the same energy.
No, yeah, there's something to be said for that. It isn't, because like even in the Light Seers card, we've got this guy here.
Oh, yes.
On the Chariot, he's sort of a daredevil, like it's like out of control. Hopefully he regains control though, because it sort of looks like a runaway coach, right?
Yeah, it does look like a runaway coach, but then again, finding that balance of like, I got to handle my stuff and I got to get the situation under control. And we would hope that that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, traditionally, that's not what they
But
look
these
like.
are two different energies. Like, this is a woman that is kind of in control. And for me, when this comes up in this particular deck, I'm often saying it's a reminder to stay balanced, to figure out your focus or stay focused or whatever. Whereas when I got this one, because I've used this one as my working deck too, it's more of a, you need to get in the driver's seat and make some decisions. So it's a little more, there's an urgency around it more, as opposed to, you're already there, but you just need to do a little bit more. In the Light Seers, I find there's a call to action, so to speak, as they call it. Now in the fairy tale one, it's Peter Pan.
Ooh, that's interesting.
So that's an interesting...
And they've got the pirate ship.
Yeah, so they've got Captain Hook's pirate ship there that Peter Pan is steering at the moment, but I marked it off because it was kind of an interesting fairy tale to put to the Chariot, because I was like, what are they going to do with the Chariot? So the number 7 actually signifies movement as well, domination of spirit over matter, and transitional motion, because it is that next level that you're hitting, right? And this card is actually, I found a new nickname for it.
Did you?
Yes, the Journey Home.
Oh.
I love it.
Well, I mean, if you have a triumph, you're on your way home.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And the chariot symbolizes a victorious inner journey where the inner world is filled with creative and inspired visions. In Peter Pan, Wendy and her brothers are tempted to stay forever in Never Never Land and stay in a state of perpetual bliss, becoming eternal children, never reaching the maturation stage of the human soul. The children symbolize our discovery that we can fly freely within our imagination and dreams. However, we must find our way back to the ground and focus on an ability to integrate the magical with the mundane service and responsibilities we have on earth. When we have taken the time to research the inner realms and embrace our inner child, traveling to our true home, our origins of magical beauty enable us to fill our lives with wisdom and magic.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like that.
Isn't that cool? I was like, yes. So the journey home.
The journey home.
Yeah. So it's a very, like, that's probably why you resonated with it too, because, you know, like, it's a soulful card.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I want that home. Like,
Feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Because, like, well, when I first started learning, before I was like, well, you know, when you first start learning, you're like, oh my God, 78 meetings. This is like all over the map.
It's
and
so overwhelming.
it's so overwhelming. But when I started to like piece it down piece by piece, I think I got so focused in on like what one meaning could be. And then I was like, okay, I just need that one meaning and I'll layer something else later. So I
Right.
think that's the approach I kind of took, was like, what's the one meaning of each card?
Right.
To kind of keep in that memory bank and work on the interactions between the cards. And then as I've continued to learn, say that 10 times fast. As I've continued my studies, the way I've done it is layered other things on top. I've really found a way of interconnecting some things. So yeah, no, I that makes a lot of sense that it would be a soul card. Wonder what that's later. Now I'm like, oh, I wonder what this card is, because that's one of my favorite cards too, is the Hermit. So I'm like, I wonder if that's another soul card.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's exciting to take this journey and learn new things. Like, I didn't come in knowing all of this. I knew a lot of it, but when I discovered that new nickname, I'm like, the journey home, that just struck me, and it was just like, oh yeah, because that's really ultimately what we're doing.
And what we want.
Yeah.
We just want to go home.
Yeah, because like I say, we're all climbing up the same mountain, just we're taking different spiritual paths, you know, but we all want the same things. We want a warm bed, we want warm food, we want people to love us and accept us, and we want to get to the top of the mountain where we've reached full spiritual enlightenment and understanding. Everybody is after that. That is home.
Yep.
So it's interesting that we fight over how to get there.
I've always wondered that, like, even from I wasn't raised in religion, but when I found...
I was.
Yeah. So this is why we work, because I have one viewpoint, you have another.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've dabbled over the years. And I think that's why I didn't stick, because I was like, this doesn't make sense that this is the only way.
Right.
And for some organized religions, they preach that this is the only way.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
My
I'm like,
mom and dad were adamant about, you know, if you're Catholic, then you'll go to heaven. If you're not, then you won't.
and I don't, like, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't sit well with me. Like I said, my first communion and confession, which is around the age of 7 or 8,
Yep.
I started questioning. And secretly, because I'm about to publish my book, secretly my mom said, keep questioning.
Ooh.
Right? Whereas my dad was like, now, you know.
Yeah.
Bring home your friends so we can convert them. And I mean, he was a lovely man, and he taught me a lot, definitely. But yeah, he was definitely, you know, all in when it came to Catholicism. And Catholicism taught me a lot.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing. So, like, overall, a lot of organized religions have innately good morals. Some
Yeah.
of them.
Well, I mean,
Don't blanket that complete statement.
yeah, like most religions or spiritual paths want you to be a good person, want you to, have charitable acts that you do, help out your fellow human being, for the most part.
Yeah.
And I know there's some religions that are like anti-gay, which is, well, how's that helping your fellow human being? But,
Yeah, that's
you know,
not. You know what? I feel like but I feel like a lot the pipeline of organized religion to rebellion to like spirituality, big. So like I was watching a YouTube video on something completely separate, but they used a lot of like the pipeline to A, B to C so that's where I'm getting that
okay.
that phrasing from. I feel like if you've started an organized religion and you've realized it doesn't make any sense, whatever reason that may be, you find your way eventually to like some sort of spiritual path outside of said organized religion.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of our spiritual paths are more accepting, self-accepting. People kind of open themselves up and are able to accept themselves as they are, so that because there's less people saying this is how you have to be, right? And I like that idea with kind of that chosen, whatever that chosen path is. You can kind of accept yourself, and I think it's a very healing for a lot of people.
Yeah, and accepting yourself then allows you the space to be able to accept others. And in part of my spiritual path, I do a lot of meditation, as you know, and I've talked about like in the sort of Christian side, it's often referred to as the never-ending prayer of being in that meditative state, because basically prayer, meditation, spell work, whatever you call it, it's the same energy.
Yep.
It's sort of coming back to center, coming home, right? And it's a constant coming back to center. That's what meditation is. It's not like people think it's clearing your mind and being still and just freezing or something. It's not freeze tag.
A lot of people can't just be still though.
Yeah.
Like,
but meditation really is a constant coming back to center. It's the discipline of coming back to center. And when you're in center, even if it's only for a few seconds at a time, in that place, you don't find that things bother you.
no.
And I've read so many books on meditation where, whoever the teacher is, the student will come and go, well, what about this? And it's like, just go back to your practice, come to center, and it won't bother you.
And there's been a lot of, so I've kind of started my meditation practice, because a lot of people, like you said, it just takes 2 seconds or it takes a minute, because a minute or 2 minutes every day is better than only doing it once a week. Or it'll help build that muscle to help you keep going, but it also helps you if you're in overwhelming situations at work or at school or at whatever. Family is often an overwhelming situation. And if you have that muscle of just trying to come back to center, even for a moment.
Be the lotus blooming in the muddy waters is what that's striving for, is learning to meditate in chaos and being okay with it and not letting it unbalance you, because then you're giving your circumstances and situation the power, as opposed to having the power yourself and the discipline of, I'm coming to center, you do what you want over there, and if you're throwing a hissy fit, it's not affecting me, right? It's sort of like, when you walk into a place and people have been arguing and they're angry.
Yeah.
And you kind of get tense because of it.
Well, that energy's being thrown around, right?
Exactly.
That chaotic, yeah.
Exactly.
So finding your center in the chaotic energy of everyone else is really
and
key.
knowing how to do that and not letting that anger affect you. Because we've all had that, a prime example is you go into Walmart and the cashier that's helping you is being really bitchy because she's had a bad day.
Yep.
And then you leave going, what a fucking bitch. And then you're having a bad day. And then you pass that along, right? And a lot of people seem to think those darker, as they want to call them, emotions are stronger. And really, they're not. I mean, Cinderella was right. Love can conquer all, right? Like, just sing a happy tune and keep going. And I know that sounds very fairy tale-like, but it really is
But fairy
powerful.
tales have morals in them, right?
Oh, yeah, a lot of them do.
A lot of the morality tales we were told are dressed like fairy tales, and they have very good, concrete, usable advice, regardless of how long ago they were made. And they can always get updated for a more you know, modern spin on things, but essentially they're still telling you the same thing. Like, be courteous, be kind, love conquers all. Like, you can learn valuable lessons. And that's where, like, I find tarot fascinating, because tarot kind of can put you into that meditative practice and really kind of center you. And I like your idea the other day. You were saying, like, pull the card at the end of the day to see how things go, and not, like, pull the card at the beginning of the day, because then that's how you'll be thinking about the whole day.
Right.
I really...
And you'll put your day in that frame.
Yeah.
Right.
So really, if you pull the tower, you're going to be like, oh, God, I'm going to have a tower day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we're all going to have tower days, but just see if it's at the end of the day as opposed to the beginning.
Because then you can be like, oh, that makes sense. That was a tower card.
Yeah.
Where at the beginning of the day, you're kind of like like, the word just escaped me. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
That's it.
I knew what you meant, and I was
Good.
blanking on it too. I was like, I totally know what you mean. I hope you come up with it.
Sometimes my brain's not branding. It's Friday afternoon here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just about to go on holidays, so I'm already checked out. But let's see what the witches have to say about
Definitely.
The tarot of the Chariot. I just had it. Oh, here we go. Flip pages on myself. So the Chariot is actually the warrior, they call it. So Amazons, like Amazon women they're talking about, because of course this is very feminist, their deck, have high ideals and questioning minds. You are a strong-willed warrior and protector of women who drive the chariot of life with mastery and control, and emerges victorious. This she does with authority, protected by armor to hide the softness inside. Wow, we're actually wearing armor when we do this. That's a rare thing.
I love that.
Your outward appearance makes the statement that you can take care of yourself. Many lesbian feminist women identify with this archetype. You hide your true feelings, which keeps you from being criticized. Now, that kind of has changed a bit. I mean,
feel like...
you know, like, yeah, you don't have to tell everybody your deepest, darkest secrets in the first 5 minutes of meeting someone.
Some people do.
But yes, yeah, I've met many of those people. But at the same time, you know, it's not about burying your emotions. That doesn't make you stronger, right? But in the 70s, it was a big thing, like, let the men express their emotions, let the women bury their emotions and become stronger or whatever. You need a purpose in life, and unexpected events disrupt you. Well, that's true. Yeah, it's nice to know what your purpose is, but yeah, there's going to be some bumps. So they go into some different goddesses. But Athena, they say, so Athena, Minerva, which is Roman.
Minerva.
Ushas. That's Indian. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Medusa, oh yeah, she's a big one. Nut, she's Egyptian.
Ooh.
And the Amazon goddesses are those that rejected motherhood, marriage, and domination by men. So Lilith should be in there.
Yes,
too.
Lilith should be in there.
They are goddesses of battle, the healing arts, wisdom, horses, and animals. Okay. So these women temper their warrior aspects with agricultural and domestic skills, such as weaving and pottery. Weaving's very big for spells and magic and stuff. Amazons drive the chariot from a grounded, balanced, and centered place once they have gained control over the dual nature of their passions. Well, that very much speaks to the horses, right? Where was I? Once again, they do not give their power to anyone. Oh. That's a big one.
Well, I find it really interesting when you're talking about power. The Sphinxes stand for life's mysteries. Note that Sphinxes are not pulling the chariot. There is no drawbar. And they simply running ahead to today's puzzles or tomorrow's path.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Nice.
Sorry to interrupt, but I was like, that fits.
I'm pretty much done anyways, as far as the reading part goes. Yeah, I mean, the chariot has a lot more layers on it. You know, I'm always like, oh, it's a victory card. Yay, great. Let's look at the victories. But, I mean, it's the journey home. These guys are the puzzles, like you just said, to tomorrow's puzzles that you have to figure out. Because there's always going to be ways to figure out how you're going to manage yourself, how you're going to manage your situation.
For sure.
What your next steps are forward, because the chariot implies that there's some movement. And it's not like the knights who seem to be
Charging forward.
charging in,
Yeah.
you know, as opposed to the Chariot, who's coming, definitely, but they're not in that charging way, you know what I mean? They're just moving forward. I mean, yes, it's all well and good, because normally they were driven after a victory, so. A lot of times, too, there's been a small victory that's happened, which just leads to more victories, right?
Yeah, so you've already started on that path. You've taken that step forward, and it's acknowledging that victory, that small victory of even starting, and then it's going to keep compounding for
Yeah.
you. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
And knowing that, you know, you're always in the Chariot. As long as you're in control, you can always move forward, and, you know, keep your horses under control. And like, it makes sense that a lot of these warrior goddesses were also goddesses of agriculture and creation and things like that, right? Like, I know in Celtic, you know, background and stuff, a lot of the goddesses, it seems like there's a laundry list, like about this long. They're in charge of this. I'm like, boy, they have a lot in their plate.
Yep.
It's like, and they overlap too, right?
Yeah, I always found that interesting, because, like, depending on what pantheon you were kind of focusing on, you're like, okay, if this one's over here but it's also over here, you're like, how does that connect?
Right,
And
right.
that should be a podcast episode.
That's true. Yeah, we could talk about that. Absolutely. Yeah, because there's, like, you know, a dozen different gods and goddesses that are about agriculture, partly because that was the way to live for a very long time. You know, like, you were dependent on your crops for your animals, for yourself, for the family, the
So
community.
we didn't want to mess with whatever was working.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So that's why there's so many, there's goddesses about food and cauldrons and, you know, all these kind of things, right? Because not only was farm and agriculture very important, but so was cooking and the weaving of clothes, because, you know, without that, you know,
Cold, and
Yeah.
you don't survive very well.
yeah, like when we jumped from back in the day when we made shelters, we would use bones as pins to pin things together. But then we made that next step of sewing, right? So it was more permanent. And so then we learned how to sew our clothes too, because I went to a friend's flower shop, Chartreuse Flowers. There's a little plug.
She's fantastic.
She is. And she had a French Revolution kind of period timepiece display in her shop, because she actually has her master's in, like, that time period.
Yep.
And she made herself a dress of that time period for her 40th birthday. So she had it on display in the store.
neat.
And she made it exactly the way they would have made it back in the day.
Oh, that takes dedication.
Yeah, it was fascinating, because it was 4 different pieces and they were all pinned on. So a lot of them were walking around with just clothes that were pinned in certain places, not sewn permanently.
That would I'd have a lot of anxiety leaving my house.
I know, right?
No
Because
thanks.
it's like, oh my God, like, I didn't think to ask, are we talking safety pins that stay, or are we talking sewing pins that might poke me, might fall out?
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Well, you'd have to, yeah, that would be. But I mean, if that's how they did it, everyone else, that's how they did it. So no one
Yeah.
else knew any different. So we're kind of, to put yourself back in that situation, of course you'd be like, nope, not for me. But if that's all you had
yeah,
access
because
to,
like you'd have a chemise or whatever
Yeah.
underneath, but all that got pinned to.
whatever layer is the outer layer.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. There's a couple like TikTokers I find, or it might have been more YouTube. They will dress in period clothing, and
Okay.
sometimes they'll like catch the difference between, like, 1870 and 1900, and some of the differences, even that small span of time, are phenomenal.
Yeah, and depending on where you are in the world and all that and some of the bizarre ones, like the binding of the feet in China, like, because small feet were considered
Beautiful.
beautiful and they could barely walk, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like, that's such a weird thing.
But like,
But then we had corsets.
yeah, and
And-
those things, you can't breathe in those.
No, women were actually having surgery to remove the lower ribs
Yeah.
so they could tuck them in even tighter, right?
There's like a whole chapter in one of my psychology textbooks about it, because like it's the modification to be at a higher beauty standard, and like the way societal pressures altered your
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, like, look at tattoos today, way more acceptable.
Yep.
But my husband and I were just having that discussion of when tattoos fall out of favor, what happens to the people that have all these tattoos, right? I mean, they do have the technology now to remove if you want to, because I know there's.
But that's expensive. Most
That's
people
expensive,
don't
and
have...
it doesn't permanently, like, it still leaves some scarring.
Yeah.
Where the tattoo was,
But
right?
it's like a laser that like knocks the ink out of your skin.
Right.
I think
right.
is the closest to my understanding.
I don't have any tattoos at all.
I do, and I want more, but I have not better places for my money. Trust me, if I was irresponsible.
I have nothing against tattoos, but I just have so many scars. I'm like, why do I need tattoos as well?
Well, and that makes sense. I just have debts to too many people, and by too
Yeah.
many people, I mean
My
I was happy.
daughter's got a beautiful one on her
Oh,
forearm.
she does. I
Yeah.
love that one.
Yeah, it's very cool. But it's interesting because, like, it's become such a norm now.
Well, it's
And
self-expression.
I'm wondering when that cycle, because everything cycles in and out.
Everything
right?
does cycle in and out, because I'm watching people on like TikTok that are picking up school clothes for their kids, and there's like Jenko jeans and like the clueless look of like the patterned almost, but like preppy patterns.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
like, oh, we're really going back there? Okay. Mind you, it was the 80s earlier, like last couple of years. So
Yeah.
it's really
Mom jeans became a thing.
mom jeans. Oh my god, yes. But like really, I don't want whatever was in when I was in kind of going into high school, because it was like really low cut and you could barely get them on, and I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
no.
Right now, I'm at an age where I just want comfortable.
Yeah, I'll take mom jeans over whatever we had. But like you're right though. Like the societal ebb and flow. Like it's like tarot. Right now, tarot is accessible and loved by many people. But there was a point in time where you didn't know that other people read, or you didn't like go to somebody and like there wasn't this great celebration of like, hey, I'm reading at this store, like come check it out.
Yeah.
It was very secretive. And
Now, social media has definitely made the world shrink.
Yep.
Which is, has its good points and its not so good points.
For sure.
As
for
well.
Sure, for sure.
But I think the good points are that the knowledge is more accessible.
Yeah, because I feel like, especially in Reiki, so like tarot adjacent, there's your energy fields kind of playing around, and that used to be like super hush hush.
Well, it was very, it wasn't exclusive, but it was also like it was hard to find. Right?
Yes, because it was hard to find someone who practiced and was willing to teach you.
Yeah.
That was where the scarcity was.
And you and I have had that discussion where my first levels of Reiki were more than double what people now pay for Reiki, right? But I mean, you're also 6 degrees away from the original guy, and I'm 5 degrees away.
Yeah, because it actually, I'll have to
do the lineage.
Yeah, the lineage is really interesting, and you learn the history. And I'm rewatching just because I don't do Reiki all the time, right? So I like to refresh some of my brain a little bit on the more intricate details,
Right.
And so within that, there's the history lessons in there. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting.
Yeah, my Reiki teacher was very cool. She's since passed on. She was one of my mentors that I was lucky to have in my life. And I loved learning from her because she was British, and so she was always up for tea breaks.
Yes. The Brits are awesome.
It's like, shall we have some tea? Why, yes, we shall.
Yes. Never turn down tea from a Brit.
Right, exactly.
Not in like a bad way. They won't kill you or anything, but they love their tea.
They do, and she loved hers, and she always had biscuits, and I was always like, yay, biscuits and tea. Oh, yeah, I learned right up to master with her, and then I had to go to Texas to get my grandmaster, but...
Texas, eh?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
There's a story there.
Yeah.
All right, that might be on the other Tarot Delights podcast coming soon. Or not. Other Delights.
Other delights, yes, other delights.
All right.
Of a mystical quality.
Pop your comments and questions down below. What card do you want us to do next? If no one says otherwise, we'll keep going in order.
Yeah, we'll keep going. So what's next? The Hermit? Who's next?
That's 9. We're on 7. What's 8?
8. Oh, Strength.
Okay. I was like, there's one in the middle.
Yeah, Strength. There we go. We'll be talking about strength next time.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Hope you can join us again. Are we doing one next week? Because I'm on holidays.
You're on holiday, so that's up to you.
Okay. We'll see if we're doing one next week. You might not see us again till September, though.
That's fair.
Okay.
You deserve time off.
There you go. My daughter's insisting.
Yes. Come visit me next Friday. I will be here.
Yes, there you go. She'll be in the shop. All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye. All right, where's the X? There it is. Well, they stare at my big finger.